right, let's do this. Goodfellas is really good too, Patel. That would be right up there for me. We've lost 2 of the actors from Goodfellas just in the last, couple of months, huh? I'm just getting kind of settled in here. We'll give time for folks to join, and then I'll let you know how I'm going to do this, kind of talk you through my thought process. This is really just an excuse for us to talk about historical films and stuff. It's not meant to be taken all that seriously. I'll talk about why some of these movies are my favorite or not my favorite. We'll talk about how historically accurate I think they are. Maybe talk about some of my favorite scenes, some of your favorite scenes. Did this Glasgow shirt come from Glasgow? Looks like I got a pizza stain on it. I had DiGiorno for lunch. Yes, I did buy this in Glasgow. Right in kind of the center of town, right near, not too far from the tallest movie theater in the world. That's right there in Glasgow. All right, so as far as TV shows, movies, series, I believe this particular Tiermaker does include some TV series, so it's not strictly movies. Some of these are actual series. I did not choose this list. I have not seen a lot of these, and anything I haven't seen, I'm just gonna drop into haven't seen. If I'm kind of torn on something, I may have you guys do a poll on a few of these here and there. I may, do something like that, but basically, the only requests that I have for you is that you keep the discussion, for the most part, to what we're talking about. Please don't ask me my opinion about a film that isn't the one we're currently talking about. So, if we're talking about, let's pull one out of here. If we're talking about Public Enemies, please don't ask me what I think of Saving Private Ryan, okay? We're going to get to those. So, there will be time. Daniel, thank you and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. That doesn't mean we can't talk about other stuff here and there. I'm just saying, try to use some guidelines with that. So, it's not only American history, though I think for the most part these are going to be English language films, but that doesn't mean they're strictly American. But I did not make the tier list. I went with the one that seemed like it had the most. There are 170 films and series in here. I'm not going to rank all of them, but please don't ask me if a particular film or series is in here. I believe these are organized by kind of topic. So, it looks like all the World War II ones are together in one area. It seems like they may even largely be in time, in chronological order in terms of the time period they're covering. So, there's pre-World War II right here. There's World War II. There's kind of the space race and stuff. So they seem to be largely organized by time period on here. I'm not going to go necessarily directly in order, but I did watch Game of Thrones. Big fan. Imitation Game is fantastic. Yes, we will get to that. Please do not ask me if a particular film or series is in here. First of all, I don't know because I didn't make it. Second of all, if we do that, that's all we're going to talk about is me answering that question. So just be patient. So, there are going to be things that aren't in here that should have been in here. This is not a definitive list. This is not a perfect list. And a lot of these I would not have included if I were ranking. And some of these I'm just going to drop into the haven't seen. Or not ranking. So some of these I've seen, but I'm not going to rank them just because I don't think they really deserve to even be in this list. So, internet seems to be more stable. I've got it's running through the power line now, and I've done a couple of streams now with no issues. I'm even on low latency, which means there's a less of a lag between what I'm saying and what you guys are seeing. So, yeah, Gods and Generals, I don't think is in here. In fact, I'm looking to see what we do have from the Civil War. Wait a second. Did they not even include Glory in this list? Because that's going to be a problem if we didn't even get Glory in this list, because I think that's one of the best historic movies of all time. We may have to find a different list to do if this one doesn't even include something like glory. Oh well. We'll go with what we have, I guess, for now. And then I'll mention some that I think should be there that aren't. I guess we'll do it that way. Okay. Yeah, I probably can insert things. That's a lot of extra work. I'll just tell you what they are at the end. Quattro, thank you and welcome to being a member. Yeah, that's what I did. Like Professor Watt said, there were some that weren't in the Civil War generals list that should have been there. So, all right. So I'm gonna jump around. I'm not gonna do just like one time period, and just kind of go in order. I'll start with some of my favorites here. Kind of work my way around. So big start. Any of you who are football/soccer fans? My teams got off to a good start. Rangers came from behind and scored 2 goals in the second half to win. West Brom, my other team, I just finished watching them. That's why we're streaming at 3 and not 2. I had to finish watching them. They got a tough point on the road, so that's good. Commander Vaughn, thank you. Appreciate that. Guten Tag, Grit Grimes. Gamers Anonymous, thank you. I appreciate that. Hope we do get the chance to meet. Speaking of, before we get into this, I am planning to try and do a meetup at the Antietam battlefield. So if you live in that area or will be in that area, my last day at Antietam will be the 12th of August. And I will post the details in an announcement video here in the next couple of days. But I am planning to do a meetup and kind of a tour a little bit of the battlefield. What we'll do is we'll probably meet up in the early afternoon. That way in the morning, if I have a couple last minute things I need to do as far as videos go, we'll probably meet up around noonish. Give everybody a chance to grab some lunch before they come. Meet up around noon, tour the battlefield for a few hours, and then if you guys want to have dinner together, we can do that. But I'll be posting an announcement about that very soon. So August 12th. It's a Friday. I know a lot of people work, but if that's something you might want to do and you're going to be in the area, keep that in mind. Details will follow. So, Kev Rob, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I agree, Joe Matthews. Second half was much better for West Brom. And we still like we've got OK Yükselu, who just joined, who I think is going to be a huge addition for West Brom. That'll get in there pretty soon. So anyway, King's Speech. So the King's Speech is the mostly historical portrayal of King George VI and his struggle with his stammer, which is something he had his whole life that went back to childhood. Gets the big stuff right as far as history goes. It certainly works within the time frame of real history. It doesn't change any of the major facts. Obviously, keep in mind that in any form of entertainment, whether it's like a musical like Hamilton or a TV show or a movie, because of the format, because of the nature of that entertainment, things are going to be changed. Characters are going to be condensed. Timelines are going to be mixed around. And so we have to kind of accept that as a part of the medium. That said, the King's Speech gets a lot of the stuff right. King George VI is one of my all-time favorite historic figures. I have a great deal of admiration for him, for the position he was placed into that he never thought he would. The acting is just first class. I mean, Colin Firth and Jeffrey Rush knock it completely out of the park. It's got humor. It's got emotion. It's got everything you want in entertainment, but also history. So to me, it's an A. I could almost put that one in S. And I'll probably move some of these around once I have a lot of them in place and I see how they compare. But Frankie, thank you. Appreciate that. Eventually I will do some guests on the podcast. I want to get going, get comfortable with the podcasting is new to me. Had a meeting the other day with some of the guys who run the network, the podcast network. Some cool things coming down the pike with that. Can't say more than that yet, but some stuff in the works. They have some big ideas in mind. But Pascal, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Junior, thank you. You have an ancestor that was killed at Antietam If you know what unit, let me know, because I'd love to pay my respects. And I don't know if he's buried there or not, or if he's got a marked grave. Thank you, Professor Wood. I appreciate that. I'm getting more comfortable with it, and I was off of it for a month because of the trip and everything, but now I'm back, and I'm almost done. The next one's going to be live probably here in the next couple of days. I have seen The King's Man. Colin Firth won Best Actor. Well deserved. Just so good. The way he got that, like, imitating that stammer is such a difficult thing as far as an actor goes, and it's just so good. Coach Frazier, thank you. Appreciate that. So that one's excellent. That's really, really good. Let's find another one that a lot of people know about that we can throw in here. So sticking to that theme, let's go with The Crown. So this is a Netflix series. This isn't a TV show. I'm torn on this one. I'm going to give it a B. And I want to talk through this one a little bit. Coach Frazier, thank you. Chris Johnson, thank you so much. I haven't seen Jojo Rabbit yet. So, The Crown, first of all, what does it do good? Well, the acting's fantastic. So good, the acting is. The sets are amazing. Obviously, Netflix has thrown a lot of money into this. My only fear with The Crown is because it's so much based on historic events, but so much of it is based on stuff we really don't know, because the royal family is very guarded in terms of their private lives. So a lot of what they show may be how it happened, but we really just don't know for sure. So if you accept that, then it's good. And I would probably rank it higher if it's stuck more to the history. But I understand it's not trying to be history. It's not putting itself out there that way. But I fear a lot of people think that if they saw it in that, then that's what really happened. So that's why I'm torn about The Crown a little bit. But as far as production value and acting and stories and everything, it's really good. And I think it's brought to light some things people didn't know about. The Aberfan disaster, for example, was, I think, forgotten by a lot of people, at least people outside of Wales. So portraying that, the London fog that killed a bunch of people, some of those stories are very fascinating. And who's the actor who played King George VI in The Crown? He's also in Chernobyl. Jared Harris. I love his portrayal of George VI in The Crown. So good. Wild Nate, thank you. You have an idea for a video? You could make a video about what life was like for the average citizen living in the Confederate States. I like that idea a lot. And I'm working on, and I'll tell you guys about this more in a minute here, with my upcoming trip to Antietam next week, how this is going to look. But Ruthie, thank you so much. Your favorite on here, King of Kings. Oh, interesting. Greetings from Maryland. Hello, Nikki. So what's cool is JD from the History Underground and I are going to be in Antietam together. We got an Airbnb together, and we'll see if we still like each other after spending 3 nights together in the same house, but I'm sure we will. But what's cool is we kind of independently have been working on our plans for the video series that we're going to do, and then we're going to overlap a little bit on some things. But when he sent me his list of what he was planning, and then I sent him mine, it worked out beautifully because we really don't have a lot of overlap. He's planning on telling a lot of stories like, here's the story of the cornfield, here's the story of the Dunkirk church and the fight around there. He's going to tell a lot of like location-based kind of big picture stuff. Most of my videos that I'm planning are more about stories. Like, I'm going to tell you the story of this one soldier who was in the 12th Connecticut and what his experience was in attacking at the Burnside Bridge. Here's the story of the 6 generals who were killed at the Battle of Antietam. So they're going to work out very nicely, and we're hoping we can kind of promote each other's videos in that way. It's kind of cool how that's going to work out. Okay. Hey, Benji in California, very cool. We did not visit Perth when we were in Scotland, but we are definitely going to go back to Scotland. So, with Scotland in mind, let's go ahead and talk about Braveheart. I really enjoyed The King's Man. I don't know that it was my favorite of that series. it felt like it tried too hard to fit them into historic events. All right, so this is a tough one for me, and I'm going to put Braveheart at a B as well. Fantastic movie. Fantastic entertainment. Again, the acting, great. The history is awful. And that's why I can't rank it higher than a B. Well, if you're looking at... Here's the thing. Lover of Truth, I get where you're coming from. If you're looking at this movie as being told from the Scottish perspective, then Edward I was the villain. If you're English, obviously you see it very differently. But you can't deny that it's a great piece of entertainment. And it did cause a lot of people who might not have otherwise known the story of William Wallace and men like Robert the Bruce, who, by the way, Robert the Bruce is the real Braveheart. When you go to Scotland, they'll say that. Braveheart is Robert the Bruce, not William Wallace. But it caused... I don't mind the playing fast and loose with the history if it gets people to learn the real history. That said, I feel like there were a lot of things they didn't have to do in that movie to still make it entertaining. Like, just things like, little things like kilts. Nobody had kilts back then. Kilts were not a thing that was a part of Scottish culture. You didn't need to do that. Just, I guess, stuff like that. I'm thinking if I were Scottish, I probably would not be a fan of it, but I don't know. Was Robert the Bruce's father... yeah, in fact, you know what? I think Robert the Bruce died of leprosy also. So yeah, I believe his father really was a leper. I think they both were. But if you want good history from that time period, it's still not perfect, but gets a lot of stuff more right. The movie with Chris Pine, which I don't see in here, the Netflix movie, which I would probably have thrown on this list if it were up to me. Outlaw King is fantastic. It's really good and much more historically accurate. Still some problems, especially with the end battle scene, Loudon Hill, that it gets wrong, like having Edward II fighting there and basically getting captured but let go. But much better. Outlaw King, definitely worth it. Very, very good. And Chris Pine nailed Robert the Bruce. I mean, good, not bad for an American doing the Scottish thing. All right, I'm sure Waterloo's got to be on here, but we'll get to that. I want to get to one. Let's talk about something that I would not rank as high. I'm just looking around to see what's on this list. I have a couple of ideas on this one that might be on here for that. Here we go. Okay. D for me with Pearl Harbor. Hey, the man Dan, what's going on? Quattro, yes and no. I don't mind, I'm kind of ranking on all those things. How was the casting? Did they get people who portrayed those characters well? How was the history? How entertaining was it? Because you can get all the history right, but have it be a really boring or terrible movie. And the history is kind of secondary in that situation. There isn't a category low enough for Pearl Harbor, JD says. So the only reason I'm not ranking Pearl Harbor as an F is because it was the first time we got to really see some of these scenes from history portrayed in such a way. Everything else about it was a mess. And honestly, I think there are far worse films than Pearl Harbor. So what do I hate about Pearl Harbor? First of all, obviously, just like with Titanic, the whole weaving a love story into historic setting, I think you could have made a great movie without having to focus on that. Compare that to, say, the Midway movie that came out a couple years ago. They still had a touch of the love story there. They had the relationship stuff, but it wasn't focused on that. It didn't consume the movie. So I didn't like that. Honestly, was not a huge fan of some of the casting in that movie. Like Alec Baldwin as Doolittle doesn't work for me. So that was one of those things. But I mean, some of the special effects scenes and some of the battle scenes were great, and I thought pretty entertaining. And that's the only reason I'm keeping it from an F. I don't know if Master and Commander's on this list. Let's take a look. I didn't make the list. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that should be here that's not. There's Waterloo. Master and Commander's not here. So let's talk about Master and Commander. That is a perfect example of a phenomenal historical film that is basically fiction. I mean, right? Because it's largely a fictional story, but it's set in a historic time period, and it gets most of the realism correct. Like, it portrays that time period accurately. So I'm perfectly fine with a fictional story that portrays it accurately. The first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan, for me, after the D-Day scene, is kind of a meh movie. But it weaves some fictional characters into a historic time period and portrays it really well. So I like that. So let's go ahead and take a look back. Tor is on here. We'll get to that one. Let's see what else we've got. What I like about this tier list, because it was hard to find a tier list that had a lot of these movies, but also included movies that weren't strictly war movies. I did one of these once before, but they were all just war movies. This one has a lot of movies that are set in history that don't have anything to do with war. So I think I might have heard my wife come in. She just got home, so give me a second. I guess not. So with that in mind, let's do one of those like non-war ones. All right, first of all, I got to do this one just because I saw it on here. Gladiator's S tier for me. Again, it's a lot like Braveheart. It gets the history, like some of the big points of history, wrong. But I don't think it's as egregiously wrong as it is in Braveheart. And I don't think that Gladiator ever really... I don't think anybody ever took it as history like they did with Braveheart. I think they just saw it as an entertaining film loosely based on some historical figures. But Gladiator, everything about that is great. The soundtrack is phenomenal. The way the movie was shot is phenomenal. The acting, I mean, this is Russell Crowe at his best. This and Master and Commander are my two favorite Russell Crowe movies. So good. The ending scene, to me, is the best acting Russell Crowe's done in his life. The whole fight scene with Commodus, and then the way that they end that with... hold on a second, guys. Turn the sound back on. Okay. All right, I'm just talking to my wife, guys. She just got home real quick. I'm ranking historical movies, and
I already know what your number one's gonna be.
What?
Glory.
They didn't put it on this list.
What?
That's what I said. The people who made... I didn't make this list.
Oh.
I'm just pulling them and ranking them. They didn't put Glory on here. Yeah.
Well, that would be your number one.
Yeah, it's horrifying. I'm not doing number one. I'm doing like letter rankings. So like best to worst. S, A, B, C, D. S is superior.
Braveheart isn't lower because it's not like very accurate.
Yeah, well, that's the only... It's a great movie. Not historically accurate.
Oh, the King's Speech. Yeah, I agree. Crown. What else do you have on there?
Everybody says hi, Mrs. VTH. Oh, a lot of them know your name, so they're saying evening, Tara.
Aw, they're so sweet.
It's evening in the UK, so they said evening.
I miss it there already.
She misses the UK. That's something a month ago she never would have said.
I actually kind of would rather live there.
She was not a huge fan of us going to the UK, and once we got there, she loved it, and now she wants to live there.
I felt better. The food's better. The weather's better. I like it. What's your other one on?
Hey, by the way, guys, join me in congratulating my wife. Many of you have heard me talk about the fact that she just got her master's degree in school counseling. Well, Friday she accepted a job as a school counselor for 3rd to 8th graders at a local school. So we're super excited about that. She's going to be setting up her office and all that stuff like that. So
yeah, it was kind of dangerous today going to the Goodwill.
Yeah.
Different places to find stuff. I'd say hello, but I'm afraid if I go around this, it'll fall.
Yeah,
so.
you probably will.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was shopping, looking for things. And garage sales, too. Oh, I did find 2 chairs at the garage sales. You know those big, huge, like, round, fun...
Okay.
You don't know what I'm talking about. $3 each.
Okay.
They're normally $45.
Nice.
Oh,
nice.
So excited. Okay, I'll leave you alone.
Okay.
All right, bye.
All right. Back to it.
You're like, get out of here.
All right, so what were we talking about? Well, we were talking about Gladiator. So, oh my gosh. I love everything about that closing scene when he dies, when he gives like his instructions, and the acting job he does is he's kind of going between the afterlife and the present life, and you can kind of see him wanting to go there, but realizing he still has stuff to do here, and then that line at the end where she says, he was a soldier of Rome, honor him. I get chills just thinking about that movie. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Everything about that movie. The battle scene at the beginning, so good. Yeah, another Best Actor winner with Russell Crowe, yep. Richard Harris as Marcus Aurelius in that one. We already talked about Richard Harris's son, who's in a number of these films that are on this list. I have seen The King on Netflix. 300 is on this list. Mr. Terry and I have talked about collabing. It'll happen at some point. I gotta stop being so busy with everything else I'm doing. So, Tombstone, please don't keep asking. I have seen Alexander, and I mentioned, maybe you just joined, but I mentioned earlier, please don't ask me about films that I may yet get to. We'll get to them. And Alexander is on this list. So, all right. Let's take a look. I'm just looking for ones that I've seen. I'm gonna drop a few in that I haven't seen. I have never seen Hannibal. Let's see what else. I've never seen that. I'm just kind of throwing some in that I know I've never seen just to kind of get them out of the way. I've never seen El Cid. I've never seen this one. We'll get to some of the others as we go, though. All right. Something else I did not like. Let's look for another one. All right. This one's a mixed bag for me. This is going to be my first C. Dunkirk. All right. So first of all, what did I like about Dunkirk? I love seeing a story of World War II that hasn't been told a million times, because so much of World War II, we are inundated with World War II stories in film and books and in TV. So Dunkirk's not one we've seen a lot of. Some of it I liked. I didn't like the whole Christopher Nolan weird timeline thing that they did with that. I understand it. So listen, I understood Inception. I understood Dunkirk and what they were doing, how the different stories were different time, like lengths of time. I didn't like it. So the acting was great. Some of my favorite actors, Kenneth Branagh. I love Kenneth Branagh. Who was the guy who played the character that's based on Charles Lightoller? He also played Thomas More in Wolf Hall. I can't remember the name of the actor, but he was fantastic in that. But yeah, Dunkirk to me is like the epitome of a meh movie. But the dogfight was good. The bad thing about the dogfight is those planes did not... Mark Rylance. Thank you, Catherine. That's right. Mark Rylance. Love pretty much everything I've seen him in. I've liked. There is, Nikki, a movie coming about Theodore Roosevelt, directed by Martin Scorsese, and starring Leonardo DiCaprio as Theodore Roosevelt. So that is coming. They haven't made it yet. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but the character that Mark Rylance is based on is Charles Lightoller, who was one of the officers on the Titanic. I think he was the highest ranking officer who survived the Titanic. And he was indeed one of those guys who was a part of bringing all those boats over to get those guys off the beach. So, Leo as TR. Now, when I heard that, I thought, ugh, really? But the last time I thought that about a casting choice was when they cast the Joker in The Dark Knight. And when I heard Heath Ledger was going to play in the Joker, I thought that was the worst casting choice ever. And the guy got an Oscar, and rightfully so. He was phenomenal as the Joker. So, yeah. So, speaking of Christopher Nolan, he's got what's the new one he's got with the guy from Peaky Blinders that's in like all the Christopher Nolan movies. The Irish actor. Oh gosh, when I get in streams, I can't remember people's names. Oppenheimer. That's the movie. Thank you. Yeah, it's Oppenheimer is the one that's coming out. That one, it's a Nolan movie. Yeah, Cillian Murphy is who I was thinking of. I'm curious to see how that's going to work out. So we'll see. All right, let's talk about something else. Amistad. So Amistad is, first of all, I'm going to give Amistad a B. I've only seen it like once. It's not a movie I've seen over and over again like I have with a lot of these. So what do I like about Amistad? First of all, the actors. I mean, we've got some of my favorite actors of all time in there. Morgan Freeman's one of those actors. I will watch anything he's in just because he's in it. So Morgan Freeman's in that. You've got Matthew McConaughey in that, in one of his first real good dramatic roles. Who else? John Quincy Adams was. Oh gosh, this happens whenever I'm streaming that I forget who people are. So you guys will tell me. He played, Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins. So John Quincy Adams. And there's a scene I love at the end where he's walking around and he's giving a speech about the Constitution in his closing arguments. And he looks at a bust of his father, John Adams. So I like that. I love that story got told. Because, again, that's an opportunity to tell a story from history that people didn't necessarily know a lot about. So I thought it was very good. And as I'm looking at this, like I said, I may move some things around as I rank more because I'm going to look and I'm going to say, oh, I don't know if these two should be the same tier. So I may move some things around as we go along. But it is. Tombstone, Florence, I agree 100%. It is a unique movie because it's telling a story that hasn't been told a million times. I have seen The Kingsman. All right. Sticking with that kind of same theme, John Adams for me is S tier history and portrayals. Again, the acting, the casting choices in this, first class. Paul Giamatti blew it out of the park. Hit it out of the park, blew it out of the water, whatever, superlatives you want to use, whatever. Phenomenal as John Adams. And the way they aged him and showed him at different time periods of his life, like I really believed he was younger, like in his 40s, and then I really believed he was 90. The makeup department was great. The guy who played, give me a second, Thomas Jefferson, Stephen Delane, who was in Game of Thrones. Awesome as Thomas Jefferson. I think he nailed that character. The introvert that was Thomas Jefferson, the kind of hard to read and yet very principled and very dogmatic in his principles, Thomas Jefferson. Laura Linney as Abigail, wonderful. She is exactly how I picture Abigail Adams to be. Who else? Who's the famous actress? Meryl Streep's daughter. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Meryl Streep's daughter is in John Adams. I think she plays Charles's widow, if I'm right. I think that's who she plays. I have to go back and look. But love John Adams. I think Paul Giamatti did win an Emmy, and rightfully so for that. Yeah, the guy who played George Washington, David Morse. If you've seen him, he was in The Green Mile, for example. Great as George Washington. Very, very good. So again, great casting choice there. You have the actor who played Cornwallis in The Patriot. constantly draw blanks when I'm doing these streams. Who plays Ben Franklin? Again, so good in that role. Mamie Gummer, yes, thank you. That is Meryl Streep's daughter. Nikki, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Tom Wilkinson. Thank you, Haley. I love the collective knowledge that we have here when we're doing these, because when I'm streaming and I'm thinking about 1,000 things and I'm following the chat, things I normally know, I just can't think of. So, if you have not seen John Adams, I think there's either 7 or 9 episodes. It's like an odd number of episodes. So good. So very good. And there's so many little details that I appreciate about it. Most of the history is on. It's very, very true to history. Take some liberties like any entertainment medium does. But little things like I've been to their house at Peacefield. And after you've been there and then you watch John Adams, you're like, I know where that is. I know exactly which room that is, because they had the details so accurate that you know exactly where you're standing when you go in. And I love that kind of stuff when they do that. It's really, really well done. Everything about it. The casting, the production value, the history, it hits them all. So, let's see. What else do we got here? All right. Let's do another one I did not like, so we can kind of get a nice balance of things here. I'm looking around. A lot of these, they didn't put a lot of the, bad ones on here, I guess. So I'm just looking to see if there's anything that I just absolutely did not like out of these for one reason or another. All right, here we go. Here's one. Speaking of Scorsese, there's my first F. The Last Temptation of Christ. I don't know what it is that Scorsese was trying to do with that. First of all, it's basically a completely I just don't know who he was appealing to, I guess. I guess he was intentionally trying to be provocative. And listen, I get it. I'm biased as a Christian against a movie like this. I wouldn't have been one of those people that was out picketing in the streets demanding that the movie not be shown. I have no problem with people making such a movie. If they want to do that, do it. I just thought it was a stupid idea for a movie. I just didn't get it. I don't understand why you would make that movie, why you would intentionally tick off a bunch of people for a movie that probably wasn't going to have much of an audience anyway. So Willem Dafoe is a fantastic actor, and I'm not going to take anything away from him. He's great in anything he does. But yeah, I didn't understand it. Why he did that. So let me contrast that with, as a Christian, what I think is the best portrayal of the story of Jesus ever put on film, and that's The Chosen, which is in here also. And again, if you're not a Christian, or if that's something that does not appeal to you, I get it, and so it's probably not for you. But it is so good. It is so good. First of all, you don't get a blonde-haired, blue-eyes European Jesus, which is a lot of people's problem with portrayals of Jesus, and I get that. Jesus also wasn't black. He was Middle Eastern, okay? So he was Semitic. He was dark-skinned, but he was kind of a dark-skinned white dude, basically. But he wasn't European, and he wasn't African. But the way they show this story is so good, and you like the guy, but he also doesn't seem like holier than thou, which is, I think, what Jesus was. He wasn't kind of above everybody else and kind of holier than thou. He was relatable. He was somebody people connected with, and so I just love everything. I'm not going to go on this for a long time, just because we're talking about history, and but The Chosen's phenomenal. If you are a believer and you haven't seen it, absolutely must watch. So Silence, okay, there you go. Franco, I don't think it's on here, but Silence is a fantastic religious movie. Absolutely agree. Andrew Garfield is in that. I think Liam Neeson's in that too. So good. Okay. let's see. While we're at talking about Andrew Garfield, Hacksaw Ridge, S for me, absolutely. Not everything about Hacksaw Ridge is perfect, and I get that. Let me tell you a little bit of things that I like. Adam Driver's in it. Yeah, he's in Silence. Jonathan, how's it going? Open source student. I'll try to remember to do that at the end. So one of my favorite scenes in Hacksaw Ridge is there for comedy relief. The scene with the drill instructor when he first meets these guys. When Desmond Doss is in the barracks and you have him come in and let me just show you first of all who's in this movie. I don't know if 1917 is on the list or not, but let me go to IMDb for a second, and I'll tell you what I didn't like, but then I'll tell you what I liked about it. So so here you see some of who was in this. I forgot Hugo Weaving played his dad in that, so that's why I like to look at these, because it helps me kind of remember some of this stuff and who's in it and who's not and that kind of stuff. We're actually missing some of the most prominent cast members here, so let's look down the list a little more. Milo Gibson, that's Mel Gibson's son. I didn't realize he was in that either. I'm just kind of refreshing my memory here as to who all is in this. Yeah, we see Desmond Doss there at the end. Gosh, there's somebody I'm trying to think of, and I can't remember who it is. All right, who plays the drill instructor, the comedy actor, the guy that's in like Wedding Crashers? I hate when I can't remember names in the middle of these things. Vince Vaughn, thank you. The scene with Vince Vaughn, when he comes in and he does the drill instructor thing, the comedy gold, so funny. And I don't know how much of that was scripted versus him just kind of doing that off the top of his head, but it was excellent. It was fantastic. So I love that. But they had a lot of Australian actors in that, and I don't think all of them nailed their accents particularly well. So that I didn't care for 100%. But Andrew Garfield was great as Desmond Doss, and I love that story got to be told by a great storyteller like Mel Gibson. Listen, Mel Gibson's a great director. Most of the stuff he's directed has been first class. So Tom, thank you, appreciate that. So the battle scenes are great. I love that they can tell a story like Desmond Doss, which is a story of faith, a story of being a conscientious objector and sticking to what you believe in, but also make it gritty and make it real as far as showing the horror of war. And there's little things I like about it, like when Doss finally comes down off of Hacksaw Ridge and the guys go over and kind of touch him and he kind of like reacts like, you know, like the edginess of that, like he's finally coming down off of that, like what he's been through the last couple of days. So I love a lot of those things. But so it's one of my all-time favorite movies, even though I don't think it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, I feel like some of the battle stuff maybe was a little bit on the side of being gratuitous for the sake of being gratuitous rather than just trying to be realistic. But yeah, so some of the realism wasn't necessarily there. Let's take a look and see what else we've got here. I think this is going to be pretty top heavy just for so many reasons. All right, JFK. I was not a fan of JFK. Of course, I'm not, for the most part, I'm not a big Oliver Stone fan. I feel like he overplays the whole conspiracy thing sometimes. I feel like he tries too hard to be controversial. There's a way to be controversial without seeming like you're trying to be. That just seems like it's trying to be sometimes. I don't know. I wasn't a fan, and I love Kevin Costner. I don't know. I don't even really have a lot to say about JFK. I just wasn't a huge fan of it. The Crown is a TV show, and there are some TV shows on this list. So I think Born on the 4th of July was good. I do think so. That's one of his better movies, and that's one I don't mind. I actually kind of like that movie. I think that one is showing a side of Vietnam that people weren't seeing. And it came across as a good movie that was telling a story. It was still somewhat controversial just because it wasn't portraying the Vietnam War as this glorious patriotic thing. But it didn't seem like it was trying to be controversial. It was just trying to tell a story. So, yeah. All right, a lot of people are talking about Chernobyl, so let's go ahead and do that. Here it is right here. S tier, absolutely. Chernobyl. Number one, again, the casting, so good. Topping off, one of my favorite actors is Jared Harris. I love everything I've seen him in. Played Grant in the Lincoln movie, which we're going to be getting to here. Again, tells a story that hasn't been told, at least not in a significant way like this. It's gritty, it's real, and it was portrayed really, really well. It's like listen, we really are living in a golden age of television. I believe that. And one of the reasons why you're seeing that TV shows are going to be really high on this list is I feel like television shows, particularly stuff on like Netflix and Showtime and HBO, stuff like that, I think they've surpassed movies as the best form of visual entertainment that's out there. Because they can tell the story in a longer way, and now they're getting budgets to be able to do that. So I think it's really, really good. There are some music biopics on here. Let's do one of those. All right, let's do Bohemian Rhapsody. First of all, I liked it. I enjoyed Bohemian Rhapsody. I've always been a fan of Queen. I think Freddie Mercury is like a once-in-a-millennium type performer. We very rarely get a guy like that. Such an interesting story that he has. And such a strange dichotomy between Freddie Mercury the man and Freddie Mercury the performer. So I liked that. Again, the casting I thought was really good. The guys that played the band members, holy cow, they nailed the casting, at least from a visual standpoint. It was good. It wasn't great. It wasn't like blow me away, like walk out of the movie theater like, wow, what did I just experience? I've got to see it again. Great. But it was good. And it was cool. It was fun. I enjoyed it. But it's not one that I like feel a need to go back and watch again. I will probably see the Elvis movie. Rami Malek's a fantastic actor. I agree he was very good in that. And I'll go back and... Are there any good movies about the Wars of the Roses? The closest I've seen that shows some of the Wars of the Roses would be The White Queen, which shows the story, mainly focuses on Elizabeth Woodville's story. So it only kind of shows the second half of the Wars of the Roses, but it's not bad. All right, so since we're talking about Rami Malek... let's go ahead and see. I don't see Band of Brothers, so I'm guessing the Pacific's not here either, which is a little disappointing because I don't know how you include some of these series and not others. So let's just talk briefly about the Pacific. I was disappointed by the Pacific. No, the White Queen. The White Queen is kind of hit or miss with the history, but. I feel like if the Pacific had come out before Band of Brothers, it probably would have been received better. But I feel like because it came out after Band of Brothers, the bar had been set so obscenely high that unless it was even better, it was going to feel like the lesser brother. And that's kind of how it felt. It was good. It didn't grab me the way that Band of Brothers did, and that disappointed me. 5D Farms, thank you for that. Real Deal, thank you. I'll answer that question in a second, real deal. As far as my opinion about if there's a TV show or a movie that's in here, I'll save answering the question about that until I get to it. Yeah, JD, that's fair. It's an acquired taste. And there are some moments I love about the Pacific. I love the way they told John Bassilone's story. One of my favorite scenes is actually the scene where they show his widow, Lena, giving his Medal of Honor to his parents. That was a good scene, and I loved seeing that side of things. Judo's poop dog. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, all the money did go to Mr. Beaton. That's fine. He was hosting it. So, but yeah. So the Pacific, I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying it's not good. It is. It's impossible not to compare it to Band of Brothers, and I'm sure we're going to do the same thing with Masters of the Air when it comes out. I have seen Downfall. My favorite part of Chernobyl. I don't know if I have a particularly favorite part. It's been a while since I've seen it. But I feel like the scene when they first finally realize how bad it is, when they get the measurement, the accurate measurement, there's that famous scene where it's not this number, it's this number. Like, that was really, really good. I don't think Master and Commander's on here, but we talked about that a little bit already. Does the Founder count as history? I guess it does, from the standpoint that it's about an event that happened and about real people. All right, let's talk about some more World War II shows here. All right, first of all, a couple more that I have not seen. I've never seen this. I've never seen that. I've never seen that. I've never seen that. I've never seen that one. So sorry to all of you who were hoping I would rank some of these that I've never seen. Let's see. Enemy at the Gates. Let's talk about Enemy at the Gates. B, kind of a B minus for me. I like Jude Law. I like Rachel Weisz. Huge fan of Joseph Fiennes. Was not crazy about the story and how it was all put together. Hold on one second. Here's what I like. I like, again, that a major Hollywood studio portrays an event that we don't typically see. You know, English language Hollywood movies tend to be about the Western Front, the Pacific, things America was involved in. So I like that we got to see something on the Eastern Front. Let's face it, the average American does not know much about the Battle of Stalingrad, and it was one of the bloodiest and most significant battles in the history of humanity. And other than people who are really into history, people don't know a lot about it. So I love that it brought attention to it. I don't love how they did it. And again, it's about a real person. Big events kind of right here and there. But that's about all I can say about it, I guess. It's a B for me. It's got some merits. Ron Perlman is in Enemy at the Gates. I'm not a huge fan of Ron Perlman. Bob Hoskins was phenomenal. Steve Clark as Khrushchev. I 100% agree with that. I was about to say that. When Khrushchev shows up, man, it's really, really good. That's one of my favorite parts of that movie, is when Khrushchev has all the commissars there and he's giving them a speech and telling them what he expects from them. That part's really, really good. Yeah. All right. So while we're at it, since we talked about Khrushchev, let's go ahead and do Death of Stalin, because that is in here. That one's an S for me. One of my all-time favorite movies that has anything to do with history. The Death of Stalin. It's not for everybody, okay? I get that. This is like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You either love it or you hate it. There's not a lot of in-between with Death of Stalin. If you're not into dark humor, like this, kind of satirical a little bit, you're not going to like it. But it's so good. It's so entertaining. Jason Isaacs as Zhukov is one of my all-time favorite portrayals of a historical figure anywhere in history, anywhere in a movie. It's so entertaining. Again, is it perfectly historically accurate? No. Does it hit a lot of the real things that happened, but in a satirical way? Yes. But if you like dark humor at all, see, Ricky, that's what I'm saying. I wasn't bored at all watching Death of Stalin, but I can understand why some people did feel that way. I get it. Like I said, it's not for everybody. So it's not one of those ones where I would say absolutely see it. Yeah, Jack Hardy, that's a fair way of putting it. It's kind of an oversimplified history. That's pretty accurate. It doesn't have Lenin because Lenin's been dead for decades by that point. The first scene where Zhukov comes in and he throws off his jacket to reveal what is actually not nearly as many medals as he actually had historically. Yeah, it's cool. And when he walks up to Stalin's son, and right before he punches him in the face, Stalin's son says, "Medic!" It's so good. So good. The Beria scene was intense. I agree, Ricky. We have not talked, Tyrone, about Malcolm X. I don't know if Malcolm X is in here, but we can certainly talk about it if it's not. I do not see Malcolm X in here. So let's talk about Malcolm X. If I were to put Malcolm X, for me, it'd probably be A-, B+. What do I like about it? First of all, Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington, again, is one of those people, like Morgan Freeman, like some others, who I will watch anything they are in, and I will probably like it just because they're in it. Denzel Washington is one of the greatest actors of our generation, and I love everything he does. So I love that. I think he did a great job with his portrayal of Malcolm X. I think, again, it's a story that probably needed to be told and hadn't been told in a way that a lot of Hollywood big pictures are. But I wasn't blown away by it, but maybe part of that could just be my background, you know? I'm a middle-class white dude from Northeast Ohio, and so for me, Malcolm X is not somebody I grew up admiring or knowing much about, or so maybe that's just part of it. Maybe I just didn't connect with the story the way a lot of other people did, but I thought it was very good. Ali, I wasn't crazy about that movie. It was all right. And Muhammad Ali, let's face it, one of the greatest athletes of our generations, the last several generations. All right, what else can we talk about here? Cold Mountain is like Jude Law's Civil War version of Enemy at the Gates. That's pretty accurate. All right, somebody mentioned Titanic. Let's talk about Titanic. First, the reason for me to hate Titanic, which has nothing at all to do with the movie itself. There it is. I'm going to make Titanic an A. So, Titanic, why do I hate it? I proposed to my first fiance that night, who subsequently broke up with me and married somebody else when we were supposed to get married. Yeah, that was New Year's night 97 going into 98, New Year's Day 98. That was the night I proposed to her. I did not end up marrying her, so Titanic has a lot of bad memories for me for that reason. Yes, Nikki, that's exactly who I'm talking about. How did you know that name? Do you know her? Or do you just remember me talking about that before? Oh yeah, I guess people remember the name. Man, I apologize in advance, Lisa, if anybody hates you, because listen, Lisa's a fantastic human being. I was a very immature person at that time. I have every bit as much to do with why that didn't work out as she did. So don't blame her for that. And it all worked out for me in the end. So I'm not complaining. All right. Let me tell you about the night we watched that movie, okay? Lisa, like I said, Lisa's a wonderful person. I am, for many reasons, I am the person I am today because of her influence. We're watching the movie. We're getting toward the end of the movie, and there's that scene where somebody falls off the back when the bow has kind of gone up, or when the stern has gone up into the air, and somebody falls off the back, and as he's going down, he hits the propeller and he spins into the water. She laughed out loud in the theater when that happened, and I will never forget that. Every time I see that scene, I think of that. So, yeah. So anyway, no, I haven't, Charlie. I have not actually spoken to Lisa since 3 months after we broke up. So it's been 24 years since the last time I talked to her. I kind of know a little bit about what's going on in her life just because her brother is married to my second cousin. So my cousin and I stay in contact. And so, you know, I see things on Facebook here and there, that kind of stuff. And she and I have both have a daughter named after the same person, and that was not something we ever talked about. It was an event that took place after the last time I spoke to her. But anyway, that has nothing to do with any of this. So anyway, Titanic, the special effects for the time, they hold up really well. Being now that it's a 25-year-old movie, they've held up pretty well considering. So they did stuff with that story that was never possible before. I, again, don't care necessarily for the fact that they weaved a fictional story into it, but it wasn't a bad fictional story. I thought it was a pretty good story. But I can't quite give it an S. Yeah, there is also a lot of practical effects in there, absolutely. And you can't deny the impact that it had. I mean, a historically based movie became the #1 movie of all time at that point in history. So a lot to like about it. I love Kate Winslet. DiCaprio is a fantastic actor. Alexander, thank you. I appreciate that. A soldier's story captured the essence of being a black officer during World War II. Very cool. I haven't seen it, but that sounds like the kind of thing I'd be very interested to see. So thank you for that recommendation. Wild Nate, is Tombstone on here? I don't think it is. By the way, speaking of Tombstone and the Wild West and that time period, there's a new series about Billy the Kid that goes back. It starts with his childhood. Now, it's not, again, 100% historically accurate, but it hits most of the big stuff fairly right, or at least as much as we know. It's really good. I watched the first 2 episodes, and it's really, really good. And we've never really gotten the whole story of Billy the Kid from start to finish, so I'm excited about that. Tombstone is fantastic. Tombstone is so good. I don't think it's in here. It would be probably an A for me, just because it hits some of the history so badly, some of the real history. But the casting, the acting, oh, so good. It'd probably be in my top 5 favorite historical performances of all time. Would have to be Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. Oh my gosh, was that so good. I mean, you guys saw I was wearing the shirt the other day, and one of the reactions I did that said, "I'm your Huckleberry." That was sent to me by somebody. Oh my gosh, Val Kilmer in that role was so good. So good. At what age did I get into history? About 8 years old is when I started getting into history. HBO's Rome, I thought I did see that on here. Is it not? Yeah, it's right here. Okay, HBO's Rome. That's an A for me. I wish it had been 5 more seasons. It's only 2 seasons, so they kind of rushed everything, I feel like, especially the second season. But what do I love about Rome? First of all, again, we get a gritty portrayal of that time period. And it's not told from the perspective of, like, it doesn't solely focus on the historical figures. You know, we get the kind of largely fictional characters like Varenus in there. So I liked that. that we got to see kind of the lower levels of what was going on in addition to stuff. Kieran Hines as Julius Caesar. Love it. I love James Purefoy as Mark Antony. I think he nailed that, like the aura of that character really good. I don't know the lady's name who played Cleopatra. I wasn't crazy about the portrayal of Cleopatra, but she at least looked like Cleopatra, so I liked that. Yes, Franco, one of my favorite scenes, when they present the head of Pompey to Caesar and he gets mad and he says, he was a consul of Rome! I love that. Love that scene. So yeah, I love Rome. I just wish it had been like 4 or 5 seasons instead of like 2. Titus Pullo and Lucius Vorenus. Yes, I know they were real people, but we don't know anything about their real story enough. Like, I guess what I'm saying is the characters of Titus Pullo and Lucius Vorenus were fictional in the story. Yes, they were real people. Kind of like what Gladiator does with some of the characters. It has real people, but the portrayals of those real people aren't based on any real history. Vince, thank you. Appreciate that. Outlaw King with Chris Pine. We talked about that at the beginning. Excellent. Very, very good. All right, let's talk about Tora, Tora, Tora. To me, still one of the top 5 World War II movies ever made. And it actually is going to be the inspiration for something that JD and I are doing in Antietam, which I'll tell you more about as we go along. What I love about Tora, 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 first of all, obviously it's a time when they had to use practical effects, which, whenever possible, are always going to be better than the special effects, the CGI stuff that we get all the time anymore. Same reasons why you're going to hear me talk about how much I love Waterloo. If you've asked the same question 5 or 6 times and I haven't responded, there's a reason I haven't responded to it. So that means I'm going to get to it or, something. So please don't keep asking the same questions over and over again. They had 2 separate film crews. They had one that filmed all the scenes focusing on the Japanese perspective, and another one doing all the scenes from the Allied perspective. And then they put them together. And I love that concept for a film. I love that they mostly stick just to the history. For a perfect example of what they didn't really do in that film that they did in the Charlton Heston version of Midway that I didn't like, and I get why they did it. The Midway, the Charlton Heston Midway, where they have all of the stuff going on with his son and the son's love interest and the internment camps. I understand why they did that, because they wanted to be able to tell that story of what was happening with Japanese Americans. But I don't like inserting whole fictional storylines like that. Same thing they did with Pearl Harbor. Tora, Tora, Tora doesn't do any of that. Yes, there are still some things that aren't exactly historically accurate in it. And we largely have Tora, Tora, Tora to blame for everybody believing that it's 100% historical fact that Admiral Yamamoto said, I fear all we've done is awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve. We don't have any proof he actually said that. He may have, but so that kind of stuff. But it's so good, and it holds up really well too. A lot of these World War II movies that were made in like the 60s and 70s, I still think are some of the best historic movies that we will ever have. Yes, there's a scene in Tora, Tora, Tora. I think it might be the one. Is it the one at Hickam? It's the one on the airfield where the planes are exploding and stuff. That was legit. The people were legit running for their lives because it almost killed some people. That was not planned. So, yeah. Okay. Let's see what else we can talk about here. All right, Pocahontas. Disney's Pocahontas. Another F for me. And I say this as one who has descended from Pocahontas 4 different ways. 4 of my 8 great-grandparents are descended from Pocahontas. Both my parents are. I have multiple lines of descent from Pocahontas. She's grandma to me. She's my 14th great-grandmother. I didn't like anything about it. I get that Disney was trying to do a Disney princess movie about indigenous peoples. I just wish they had done a better job with it. The whole story is BS, the way they tell the story. There's so little of it that's actually historically accurate other than the characters involved. And even then, the relationships of those characters was not good. Disney needs to just stay away from history. Not a fan of anything that Pocahontas did in that movie. Quattro, that's accurate. Making Zeus a family man, yeah. What did I think of Hamilton? My upcoming podcast deals with precisely that. And there's actually a video here on the channel, a 2-hour live stream I did when the channel was brand new. If you just look that up when we're done here, you can hear everything I think about Hamilton on there. I have seen Kingdom of Heaven. Let's see. So, all right, Thin Red Line. This, to me, is how not to make a World War II movie. It's a D for me. Colors of the Wind's a great song. That's about it. Thin Red Line. To me, it's not even a movie. It's like a bad attempt at art. I don't know. I just was not a fan. And I love Jim Caviezel, who was in that. And I love some of the actors who were in that. But I could not get into that movie. And it's really hard to make a movie about history that I can't get into. There's very, very few of them on this list. And as I'm honestly, I was able to get into Pearl Harbor. I enjoyed Pearl Harbor as a movie. I didn't enjoy it as history. I don't like Thin Red Line at all. I barely got through that movie. Just couldn't do it. It was boring to me. It was really boring. Okay. All right, let's talk about Lincoln. All right. Again, just a reminder, if you have posted the same thing 3 or 4 times, I've seen it. If I haven't responded to it, that means I'm still going to get to that, or I'm just not going to. JD, good point. Celebrity stuffing, definitely. I feel like that's the same thing that happened with parts of Pearl Harbor, like with the casting of Alec Baldwin as Doolittle. And I feel like even the 2019 Midway did that a little bit. Like I struggled a little bit with Woody Harrelson as Nimitz. He kind of looked like Nimitz, but I just felt like that was an out of place casting to me. I don't know. But all right, Lincoln. Probably the best portrayal of Abraham Lincoln we will ever see. Daniel Day-Lewis nailed that character. He was Lincoln, at least as far as I'm concerned. The only other person I feel like who has ever even come close to portraying Lincoln right was actually Sam Waterston in Gore Vidal's Lincoln, the miniseries. But he did. He became Lincoln to me. Love that movie. I love the way it was done. I wish we'd gotten more of Lincoln's story than just those couple of months. But it's an interesting choice they made to only focus on one little tiny part of the story. They basically took about one chapter out of a book that's about 1,500 pages long by Doris Kearns Goodwin. But it's good. It's really good. And I liked a lot of the casting choices in that one too. Again, a lot of big names in that one. Not perfect, but very, very good. Okay. Let's see. What else was something that I didn't like? Public Enemies, I'll give a C. I'm a Johnny Depp fan. I like Johnny Depp. I think Christian Bale was in that too, and I like him. Although I have a really hard time seeing Christian Bale without thinking of American Psycho. Like, because that was the first role I ever saw him in, I have a hard time seeing him in as anything else. I always see him like I have to return some videotapes, you know. But I don't know. I couldn't get into it. I'll tell you a movie that's from that same time period that I really did get into was The Highwaymen with Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson. That was amazing. I loved that. One of my favorite Prohibition era movies that's ever been made. That's Netflix, I think. But yeah, Public Enemy to me just, yeah. It wasn't bad. I just couldn't really get into it. Jose, hello in the Dominican Republic. Very cool. Highwaymen was really cool. And one of the things I love about that is their choice to not really show Bonnie and Clyde until the scene where they're killed. Like, that's the first time you really see them for more than just a split second. And that's a cool, like, artistic choice that they made that I think really helped sell that movie and the aura around Bonnie and Clyde. I thought it was really good. And if you have any interest whatsoever in that like Prohibition era, definitely check out Highwaymen on Netflix. Very, very good. Okay. All right, let's talk about Patton. Glory's not on here. I don't know why they did that. Patton. I got a lot of S's right now. I may have to move some of these down. Patton is and always will be one of my favorite movies. Here's what they don't get right. Patton's voice. I think George C. Scott captured the aura and the ethos of Patton perfectly. I mean, he really was Patton. He had the right persona for that performance. He didn't sound anything like George Patton. George Patton's voice was not the gruff voice that you hear George C. Scott with. He actually had kind of a high voice that doesn't sound at all like you would expect Patton to have. Same thing with Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln did not sound like Gregory Peck, who was one of the people who has portrayed Lincoln with a deep voice. Like, he had a high voice. You can see videos of Patton speaking to get a sense of that. But that said, the movie gets a lot of the history right. A lot of scenes that you might see in Patton and think there's no way that really happened. It did really happen. Like the scene where he's sitting having the conversation about air cover and air superiority in Africa with the British generals, and they're like assuring him that they've got complete air superiority, and just then the Germans attack and they strafe, and the building that he's in gets hit, and he has to dive under the table, and then he goes outside, starts shooting his revolver at the Germans. 100% right. That all really happened exactly like that. Him giving a medal to the chaplain who wrote the prayer that he had distributed to everybody. That did happen. You know, stuff like that. So I love some of those things. It's not perfect, again, but so good. And I don't know. I just can't say enough good. That's one I will watch over and over and over and over again. I can't add Tombstone Warhawk. It's not here. Warhawk! Hey, buddy. Guys, listen. Right now, before you do anything else, even if you have to leave the stream or open a second browser, go subscribe to Warhawk. If you have any interest in Civil War history, his stuff, excellent. I don't think there's a better source for getting the details, the blow-by-blow, minute-by-minute of what regiments were doing. Warhawk does that so good. He must put, I have no idea how much time he puts into his videos, but it's so good. Subscribe to Warhawk. Go look him up. I've done a couple reactions to his stuff, but excellent. All right. Rise of Evil. That is, who's the guy that plays Hitler in that? He was like Rumpelstiltskin in the TV series that came out a couple years ago. Somebody help me. He's a Scottish actor. Somebody help me with his name. I'm sure somebody will know it right away. Robert Carlyle. Yes, and you know who else he was? He was in Young Guns. He is the deputy who goes in and says, "I do things law way." Oh wait, no, that's not Robert Carlyle. That's not Robert Carlyle. That's the guy who plays the character in Prison Break. I'm confusing two guys. Anyway, I take all of that back. Robert Carlyle. What else was he in? Yeah, Robert. That I really, really like Hitler: Rise of Evil with Robert Carlyle. You know what confused me is that deputy's name was Carlyle in Young Guns. Totally different actor though. So here's Robert Carlyle. That's him. Really good actor. What else was he in that people would have seen? Once Upon a Time is where he plays Rumpelstiltskin. But he was Hitler in Hitler: Rise of Evil. Really, really first-class acting job. He had his mannerisms down. I mean, seriously good. Thank you for those of you who have subscribed to Warhawk. You won't regret it. I'm telling you, if you're into Civil War history at all. Okay. What else do we got here? I've never seen Tolkien. I'm gonna have to check that one out. I've never seen 300 Spartans. We're not going to get to all of these, by the way. There's just no way. I talk too much to be able to get through all of these. Downfall versus Rise of Evil. So listen, Rise of Evil is portraying young Hitler like when he's in his 20s and 30s. Downfall is end of his life Hitler. Both fantastic acting jobs. I don't know if Downfall is on this list. I don't think it is. But again, highly, highly recommend Downfall if you haven't seen it. And that actor, German actor, trying to remember his name. Somebody will say it. He was in the movie Luther, about Martin Luther, with Joseph Fiennes playing Luther. Really, really good in that one too. Bruno Ganz, that's right. So good. Downfall, it's German language, definitely worth seeing. So good. All right, what else do we got here? Wolf of Wall Street. This is another Scorsese film. I'm going to give it a D. Here's why. And part of this comes from me being, listen, I don't swear. I haven't said a swear word in like 20 years. I'm not passing judgment on those of you who do, my wife included. That's not my point with this. I've got no problem with the appropriate use of language at all. No way, shape, or form. If you can't get through a sentence in a movie without using the F word 3 times, after a while it gets tedious for me. And that's kind of the Wolf of Wall Street. It's overdone. You get beat over the head with it. I like the story. I even like the way the story is told. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's kind of almost satirical while telling a somewhat truthful story. But it's just I like, maybe I just don't. I'm not around the right people, but I don't know anybody who talks like that. I just really don't know anybody who uses that word that much. I don't know. Just when I notice it, it's too much, and I don't typically notice it. All right. What else do we got here? I don't even Ilya, if the swear, I don't even have a problem with there being the language in there. It's just the overuse of it. It almost feels like they're trying to put it everywhere they could, you know. Otherwise, it's probably a B for me. Okay. What do you guys want to see next? Let's do A Bridge Too Far, since I just went to these places. A. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of the 60s and 70s World War II movies that they did. They got all these big actors. And like JD said, sometimes it can feel like celebrity stuffing. A perfect example of that is in The Longest Day, using John Wayne, who was way too old and way too fat to be a paratrooper like he was. So occasionally that kind of stuff happens. And you get a little bit of that in A Bridge Too Far. But still, it's really, really good for me. And I love them telling the story without having to embellish it. Like, they don't even try to tell like a love story in A Bridge Too Far. It is just history, 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 history. Is it 100% right? Like anything? No. Or John Wayne as Genghis Khan. Great example. That movie killed him, by the way, and a lot of other people, that Genghis Khan movie. But I really liked A Bridge Too Far. And again, another actor who's one of those people who I will watch pretty much anything that he's in is Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman's Polish accent. Yeah. Yeah, The Departed does have... But even, Anthony, even though the language was used a lot in The Departed, it didn't bother me in that one. I don't know. It just didn't. Color 8847, thank you. If you have a question about the gaming channel, go for it. I have not seen The Forgotten Battle. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Ooh, Apocalypto, is that in here? Haven't talked about Inglourious Bastards. The Pianist, I don't know if it's on here. Apollo 13 is on here. Okay, let's go ahead and do Apollo 13. The stream will be available to watch later. You'll be able to watch it from start to finish later on. Apollo 13's a B for me. First of all, great movie about a historic topic that gets most of the important stuff right. Big fan of a lot of the actors in this. I love Tom Hanks. I love Bill Paxton. I love Kevin Bacon. I love Gary Sinise, Ed Harris. A lot of that stuff. Good stuff. It's a good movie, and that's one that I'll watch more than once. And I wouldn't have a problem with putting it in A tier. I don't know. I also want historic movies to be entertaining for me. And I guess I just wasn't entertained. Like, I already know what happens at the end, right? So there's no real suspense. So for that, I don't know. It just felt like there was something missing in Apollo 13, and I don't know exactly what it was. Yes, Bill Paxton was in Titanic. He was in Tombstone. He plays Wyatt Earp's younger brother in Tombstone, the one that gets killed, Morgan. And he is a great-great-grandson of Elisha Paxton, the Confederate general. Killed at Chancellorsville, I think. Alex, I have not seen The Life of Others. Thank you for that, by the way. I'll have to check that out. Lucy makes an excellent point about the way they used celebrities in 1917, which I thought was really smart. The only big name actors you see in 1917 are the highest ranking officers, or the people you only see in one scene. So Benedict Cumberbatch as the colonel in command of the attack. You've got Colin Firth as the general that sends them on the mission. You've even got, what's his name, that plays Robb Stark, who plays the older brother that you only see at the end. I liked that choice to make those the big name actors in the movie. I think it worked. Ooh, Mark Strong's a good actor too. Yeah, like Richard Madden. Thank you, Victor. That's who I was thinking of. I have seen Peaky Blinders. I love Peaky Blinders. Big fan. And my family comes from Birmingham, so in the Birmingham area. 12 Years a Slave. So people have been talking about that. Let's talk about... Yeah, Andrew Scott was in that as well. And he's also in John Adams, Andrew Scott. Andrew Scott's in Band of Brothers. He's in John Adams. He's in 1917. He also plays Moriarty in the Benedict Cumberbatch version of Sherlock. He's all over the place. So Andrew Scott plays Hall, whose real name was actually Halls, who is the soldier that Winters loses in the attack at Brecourt Manor that you see in Band of Brothers. He plays Adams' son-in-law, Colonel Smith, in John Adams. So, yeah. All right. So, let's talk about 12 Years a Slave. Let me find it first. There it is. Okay. So, first of all, based on a true story... I'm going to go B with 12 Years a Slave. Based on a true story, gets a lot of it right. I think it was a story that needed to be told. A perspective that hasn't often been shown until recent years in terms of what slavery was like. I fear that it has the opposite effect of what like a Gods and Generals had, where Gods and Generals almost gives you the impression that none of that kind of stuff was happening at all. I don't think it was intentionally doing that, but it did omit that side of things. I feel like 12 Years a Slave can err too far on the other side of things, where you might come away from that movie thinking that that's what it was like for every slave in every situation. Now, I'm not trying to whitewash slavery. Slavery was evil, no matter how kind a master may have been to their slaves. The fact is, they still enslaved those people. They still owned them and kept them from their freedom. And that is inherently an evil thing to do to people, regardless of how nicely you treat them. So I get that, and I'm acknowledging that. I felt like it almost went to the point of caricature with some of the evil slave master kind of thing. But it was a good movie, and I think it's an important movie for people to see, for sure. Noah, thank you. Appreciate that. But I understand, again, that my perspective and my upbringing may cause me to see that film differently than other people might. So I get that. Wild Nate, thank you. And they're remaking All Quiet on the Western Front. Netflix is remaking that. Fingers crossed they do a good job. Kieran Frank, thank you. Appreciate that. I think it's better than Free State of Jones. And Free State of Jones is another important one for portraying what things were like in Reconstruction. But what I like about the balance in Free State of Jones is that we also get a sense that not all Southerners were that way. I didn't feel that watching 12 Years a Slave. Okay. I haven't read. I'm going to have to mention Tom Sizemore at some point. Okay. What else do we got here? Let's try and touch on a different time period we haven't done yet. All right, let's do We Were Soldiers. Yeah, we'll do Imitation Game too, definitely. Alexander, you thought 12 Years a Slave was a masterpiece? All right, very cool. Alex, thank you. I have seen Generation War. Very, very good. A lot of people call that the German Band of Brothers. It's in German language, but it's really, really good. Okay, We Were Soldiers. I'm going to give it an A. I'm not huge into the Vietnam era as far as history goes. I'm not sure why that is. It's just a time period I've never found myself that interested in. I need to get more into it. That said, I enjoyed the movie, and I came away from the movie angry about Vietnam, angry about the situation those guys were put into. And listen, I like Mel Gibson. I love Sam Elliott. And I thought those two were fantastic in that movie. I might even drop it to a B. Only because I don't have a lot to compare it to. Because I've never really been into Vietnam movies. So I don't have a lot of a great reference point for that one. But I thought it was good. Let's see an F tier in my opinion. Well, we've got a couple of them so far. I feel like a lot of the ones that would have been F tier they didn't put in here. What else do we got? I'm looking over the list here. I'm not really seeing anything else that I would immediately think of as being F. All right, I'll give you one. Caligula. I get what they were trying to do. But again, that one comes across to me, and I haven't seen most of it. I've only seen bits and pieces of it. It came across to me like trying to be gratuitous for the sake of being gratuitous. Almost like, what's the one recent Rambo movie? The one where he just basically explodes people right and left with a 50 cal machine gun. I don't know. It just... Caligula. And it's got some actors that I think are fantastic. Like Helen Mirren is in Caligula. I love Helen Mirren. Isn't Malcolm McDowell in that? Great actor. What was that trying to be, Caligula? Oh my gosh, it was basically an excuse to try and put porn in theaters, in mainstream theaters, I think. I know a 50 cal does actually do that, but I don't know. It just felt like it was trying to be gratuitous first and a movie second. So yeah, that was bad for me. I just couldn't do it. I don't see it here unless this is it here. I don't think it is. The John Wayne Genghis Khan probably goes there too, right? I don't see it in here though. And not only was it bad, it killed him because he got cancer because of that movie. And a lot of other people did too. I have seen Platoon and Full Metal Jacket. All right, let me see if there's anything else I absolutely do not. Oh, Downfall's in here. So Downfall, German language film, absolutely an S. Probably the best foreign language film I've ever watched. Downfall is so good. It's so very, very good. We've already talked about it though, so... All right, somebody mentioned Imitation Game. Let's do that. Let me find that. We're talking World War II era here, so I know it's on here. Here it is. All right, so Imitation Game. It's a B for me. So, a couple of things I really like about it. So let me back up real quick. Where they filmed the movie was near an old nuclear test site, and a bunch of people who were on the cast and crew of that movie ended up with cancer that was, they believe, connected to the radiation. All right, so Imitation Game. Color 8847, thank you. Color, if I missed it, I'm sorry. I was watching for your question, and I never did see it after you asked me about it. Instead of doing that, just ask me the question instead of asking me about asking the question. Anyway, here's what I loved about Imitation Game. Benedict Cumberbatch, his acting, some of the best I've ever seen. Phenomenal acting. Loved his performance in that movie, especially the scenes at the end after he has been arrested for being homosexual, and they've put him on the hormone therapy. Some of those scenes there are just gut-wrenching. Really, really good stuff. Charles Dance. How can you not love anything Charles Dance is in? Tywin Lannister himself. That was great. Some of the other stuff, it falsely portrays a lot of that stuff, how it went down. It makes it seem like Alan Turing was solely responsible for breaking the Enigma code, and that all those other people were just kind of in his way. That's not how it went down at all. So yeah, Keira Knightley I wasn't real crazy about in that movie. I'm again glad that a major motion picture brought that story to people who maybe weren't familiar with what happened at Bletchley Park. I just wish they had done a more accurate job of portraying that story. Yeah, so haven't seen Frida. All right, let's see what else we've got here. All right, let's talk about Waterloo. Waterloo's another absolute S tier for me. Best ever use of practical effects. And by practical effects, I mean tens of thousands of Soviet soldiers. We will probably never again see a movie made like that. Oh my gosh. The shots that they have where you literally see tens of thousands of soldiers in the shot marching with bayonets glistening, and these are actual people and not CGI. It's so cool. I would love to see a Civil War movie made like that. We'll never see it, but I know I can't put everything on S tier, and I'll probably move some stuff around. But yeah, you know. I have seen The Last Duel. Trying to go back and see if I ever got the question from Color. I still don't see it. If somebody sees it and I miss it, help me see it. Okay. What else can we talk about here? Hello from Cleveland. Very cool. Christopher Plummer is in. Doesn't he plays, it's been a while since I've seen it. Doesn't he play Wellington in that movie? Ooh, Darkest Hour. Okay, let's talk about Darkest Hour a little bit. Darkest Hour, probably a B for me. First of all, holy cow, Gary Oldman. Just the transformation that they made with him to make him look like Churchill, so good. And Gary Oldman's one of those actors, you know. I mean, he nails everything he does. So good. Yeah, Come and See is excellent, very good. But Darkest Hour is good. I don't think it's great. I enjoyed it, and if you're into World War II, I think it's one that you need to see. It didn't blow me away. It didn't leave me thinking holy cow, what an amazing movie. I need to see that again. That kind of thing. I did like it though. All right, Passion of the Christ. Let's talk about that. Again, coming from my perspective as a Christian, I'm going to give it an A. I get Mel Gibson's choice to put everything in the original language in Aramaic and Latin and such. I feel like I don't know if I would have done that. I think it was a necessary and important choice to portray the brutality of crucifixion the way that he did. I get that some people might think, like I've said about other movies, that it borders on the gratuitous. But as a Christian, that was a movie that for me, I saw it in theaters, and I probably sat there for about 15 minutes after the movie was over, just not moving, just kind of stunned, kind of speechless. That's what I want a movie to do. A movie like that to do. I want it to have that kind of an effect on me. to cause me to kind of reevaluate my life, so to speak. Not every movie's meant to do that. Not every movie needs to do that. But a movie like that, I'm glad it did. So yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Jim Caviezel, excellent in the role. My favorite scene, though, in that film is there's a scene where, and let me say too, I think she's a Romanian actress. The woman who played Mary, Jesus' mother. Oh my gosh, she was the star of that movie. She was really, really good. She nailed that role. So there's a scene, and obviously this is told. Mel Gibson's a Catholic, and it's told from a Catholic perspective, so leans heavily on symbolism, on the Via Dolorosa through Jerusalem and the stations of the cross, so to speak. But there's a scene where Jesus falls. And as he's falling under the weight of the cross, as he's going to his crucifixion, there's a scene where Mary starts running toward him, and she has a flashback to when he was a little boy and he's falling and hurting his leg. And I was gutted by that scene as a parent. Just that reminder that to her, this was just her little boy. And she wanted to protect him just like she had. But then the next scene of that, the end of that scene is Jesus looking at his mom and saying in Aramaic, he says, "See, mother, I am making all things new." It gets me every time. It wasn't Monica Bellucci played Mary Magdalene in the movie. I think she was a Romanian actress who played Mary in that movie. Mary, the mother of Jesus. She was so good. She had the gravitas that you need in that character, but also the acting chops to pull it off. So good. All right. I'm sure somebody will mention it and look it up for me. Okay, let's take a look and see what else we've got here. I was talking about Passion of the Christ. Maya Morgenstern, I think you're right. I think that is the name, her name. Okay, let's talk about this one here. Color asked this question. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to drop George Washington in real quick. And then I'm going to answer his question real quick before I miss it again. All right, I still don't see it. Can somebody copy and paste the question for me, because I'm not finding it. I don't want to keep everybody going. All right, so this George Washington was a mini-series that aired a number of years ago. And it's pretty good. It kind of goes through a lot of George Washington's life in a way that we haven't really seen. It's not a real like high-end John Adams style budget with the costumes and the camera work and all that kind of stuff. But at least as far as what it tells and the topics that it covers, we haven't really gotten that about George Washington. And it humanizes George Washington in a way we haven't seen. So I thought it was pretty good. All right. The game where I now play as Scottish and I'm going to take over the UK. Can I try to take over more than just the UK? Yeah, I'm going to try to, Color. We'll see how long it takes me to take over the UK. If there's a lot of time left in the game, yeah, we'll try to do more. Turn Washington Spies, love it. Love, 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 love. I don't think it's on here, though. If it were, I would probably put it at a B, only because it plays fast and loose with some of the history. But it's really well done and a very entertaining story. That's one of those ones that, to me, history is secondary because it's well cast, well acted, and the story's well told. So I can forgive some of those other things. All right, what else do we got? Let's go back in time a little bit here. All right, let's do Last Kingdom. We'll get to Zulu for sure. Bridge of Spies was pretty good. It was a little slow for me. All right, Last Kingdom. It's going to be another B for me. So here's what I love about this. I love that we get a view, along with Vikings, which is also telling much the same time period stories. We're getting glimpses into a time period in history that we haven't gotten many storytellings, not to this extent, with multiple seasons of a show where we get to follow characters. I know it's based on Bernard Cornwell's book series, but I think it's really well done. I love how they portrayed Alfred the Great in that series. Absolutely loved it. It wasn't perfect. Obviously, again, was kind of loosely based on some historic figures. It told kind of the big story elements correctly and then fit kind of fictional stories into the middle of that. Ryan, I get what you're saying. There could be some cheesiness factor to it, and I think part of that is that it didn't have the budget of something like Vikings. I think Vikings had a lot bigger budget than Last Kingdom did. Yeah, so I think that hurt it some. Gettysburg and Gods and Generals and Glory are not on here. Whoever made this list did not think highly of Civil War movies. But I did another stream that was specific to war movies where I ranked all of those. So maybe I'll throw the link in the description at the end when we're done with this to that, so we can do that one. Let's see. We've been going for how long now? I'm trying to see. Almost 2 hours already. My goodness. Okay. So we're not going to go too much longer here because I do have kids that are going to want it fed at some point. So let's do a few more. I've seen some of News of the World. The biography of Chris, VTH, will be a decent movie. They have to get Adam Sandler to play me. Yeah, we talked about Generation War. Amadeus. All right, let's talk about Amadeus. Boy, it's been a long time since I saw Amadeus. Where are we at? We're going back here somewhere because I think these are largely in chronological order. Where is Amadeus? There it is. See. I had a hard time getting into Amadeus, and I really wanted to like that movie. But I was also much younger. Maybe I should go back and rewatch it. You guys tell me what you think. Those who have seen Amadeus, what did you like, not like? Alexander Wilson, Silence by Scorsese was fantastic. I loved that movie. I loved that he told that story because, again, that's one of those stories not a lot of people know about. It did feel like a costume drama, Beth. I agree. And the costumes, were. S tier for you all time? Okay. Slow, yeah. See, it was slow for me too. And I don't know if I go back and watch it now that I might appreciate it more. But if it's going to play fast and loose with history, you got to at least be entertaining. And I didn't feel like it was that either. Okay. Let me see if there's anything else I absolutely have to do. Let's do a more recent one. American Sniper. I really wanted to like American Sniper. I'm going to give it a B. First of all, Bradley Cooper, great actor. I think he really immersed himself in the role. I think that the story that they were telling, it's a compelling story that has a really crappy, terribly sad, tragic ending to it in real life. I don't know. I feel like if you didn't go into it with like the whole patriotic view as an American, wanting to root for an American hero, you probably didn't think it was great. Yeah, I thought Bradley Cooper was very, very good in the movie. But, yeah. Like I said, same thing with Gods and Generals is another movie like that for me that I went in wanting very much to like, wanting it to do well, wanting to be a fan, and finding myself disappointed. And I like Gods and Generals more than most people do. American Sniper was the same way. I had high expectations, and I feel like it just didn't quite live up to it. I don't know. But Chris Kyle, he wasn't a perfect person, and I understand that they're trying to tell... Yeah, it is jingoistic, and I get that, but so are a lot of movies about war. A lot of the World War II movies are the same way. We're just further removed from those events, whereas American Sniper is about an event that's much more closer to real time. So it hits differently, I guess. Probably the same way a World War II movie made in the 1940s would come across to people who lived through it. Okay. Hey, good night, Antonin. Okay. Let's go back in time again here. Find something else that I've seen that I can cover a little bit. All right, let's talk about the TV series Spartacus. Some of you are not going to agree with me on this one. D for me. I'm struggling to find redeeming qualities. There's a few really good actors in Spartacus, but beyond that, couldn't do it. And rest in peace, the actor who originally played Spartacus. They had to change kind of partway through because he died of cancer. Very sad. It is borderline porn, I agree. And other shows do that, but they at least have a good story to go with it, right? Game of Thrones has some pretty gratuitous moments, but it's also got a good story. Spartacus doesn't have that going for it. It's a guilty pleasure type thing. If you're really into that time period, you might have liked it. Me, as somebody for whom that period of history is not something I'm really passionate about, I just couldn't do it. Now, the film Spartacus, different story, and I think that's in here too. First of all, let's just talk about the fact, on a personal level, that the grandson of the star of that movie subscribes to this channel. All right, so really, really cool kind of thing. Dylan Douglas. Dylan, I don't know if you're watching today, my friend, but Dylan Douglas, who is the son of Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones, the grandson of one of the all-time greats, Kirk Douglas. Dylan is a fan of this channel, so kind of tooting my own horn to be able to say that, but I was really blown away when I first found out about that. Cool story. Love Kirk Douglas, one of the all-time greats, right? His son Michael's a fantastic actor too. Spartacus, again, is it exactly historically accurate? Not necessarily, but for the time and place, epic story. Love Spartacus. I'm Spartacus, and everybody stands up, and cool stuff. And so, yeah, Kirk Douglas just passed away in the last couple of years. Lived a long, long life. You want to know one of my all-time favorite acting roles by Kirk Douglas? He starred with his son, but not his son Michael. His other son, a son who very sadly passed away from the effects of drug abuse. And I got a chance to actually visit his grave, Eric Douglas, when I was out in Hollywood. It was for Tales from the Crypt. Some of you have probably seen it. But he plays a fictional general, and Dan Aykroyd's in it too. He plays an American general in World War I whose son is a lieutenant, but he's a coward. And I think it's called Yellow. That's the name of the episode from Tales from the Crypt. It's called Yellow. And Eric Douglas plays this lieutenant. He looks a lot like Michael Douglas. He has the very same facial features, same voice and everything. Basically, In yellow, the son gets arrested for cowardice, and he's put on trial, and he's found guilty, and he's sentenced to death for desertion, for cowardice in the face of the enemy. And the father, played by Kirk Douglas, who's acting with his real-life son, goes to the son the night before the execution and said, listen, I'm not going to let them kill my son. Do you think I'd let that happen? He said, here's what's going to happen. I've already given orders that we're moving out from this position tomorrow, right after the execution. So he said, you're going to see a supply kit that I'm going to leave for you. When they fire the guns, he said, I'm the one who loads the guns. I'll load them all with blanks. When they fire, fall backwards like you've been hit. We're going to march off, grab the supplies, and take off and run and get out of here. He says, but what I need you to do is I need you to show some guts. I need you to show some courage in the face of this execution. So my soldiers know my son's not yellow. Well, at the very last second, he looks back. He sees the supplies back there. He feels like everything's going exactly according to plan. And right as they're aiming their guns, the father, the general, looks away. And that's when he realizes his dad lied to him so that he would be courageous in that moment. And they fire and they kill him. It's really, really interesting. And Tales from the Crypt was something I grew up watching as a kid. So in my memory, that's one of like my all-time favorite Kirk Douglas performances. All right, we got time for a couple more. Let's see here. What have I missed that I really, really, really need to cover? Man, there's so many good things out there here that haven't even been mentioned. All right, The Untouchables. A C for me. Here's why. The history's awful. The history's absolutely awful. There's very little about it that's historical other than the people involved. Even the stuff that is historical, they still find a way to screw up in some ways. What do I love? I love some of the actors and their portrayals. I love Kevin Costner. I love Sean Connery in this movie. Obviously, you've got De Niro playing Al Capone in this one. So it's got some great actors in it, but the story itself is a mess for me. And I really wanted to like Elliot Ness because he's a Northeast Ohio guy. He's a Cleveland guy. But I just couldn't do it. The King's Man, Bizarre, yes, thank you. And I did see it, and I did enjoy it. My wife and I watched it about a month ago. Okay, Gangs of New York. A bunch of people have asked about that. That one's a B for me. Daniel Day-Lewis is phenomenal in anything he's in. Wasn't crazy about some of the characters or their portrayal. I like that we got a glimpse of that time period. I feel like, again, this is Scorsese being a little bit on the gratuitous side with some of this stuff. I mean, come on. The Union Navy firing broadsides into the heart of New York City during the New York City draft riots. Come on. No chance that ever would have happened. I did Chernobyl already, Jackson. How often do I put out the game that you asked about, Color? Probably 2-3 episodes a week. So yeah, there was some good about Gangs of New York, some not so good. Couple more. All right, let's talk about Zulu. All right, now I always get confused. Help me remember. Zulu is the one about Izan Loana. Zulu Dawn's the one about Rorke's Drift, or am I getting that backwards? It's been a while since I've seen either one of them. So tell me which one's which. Zulu is about Rorke's Drift. Zulu Dawn is about Izan Loana. Okay. That's initially what I thought, but then I second-guessed myself. All right, here's what I love about Zulu. Great movie. Again, great acting performances. I love, again, that we get to see an epic moment in history that hasn't really been portrayed much in documentaries or in films. Some of the stuff is ridiculous to me. First of all, understand that in 1879, when this movie takes place, the unit in question, the 24th Regiment of Foot, was not called the South Wales Borderers. They were called the Warwickshires. They were a Midlands regiment. Only like a third of them were Welsh. They kind of portray this as a bunch of Welshmen, and so they sing Men of Harlech at the end, which they wouldn't have sung because none of those guys would, very few of them would have known that. So that was somebody, I think somebody messed up on the history there, and they portrayed a later history and kind of backtracked it a little too far with the regiment. Otherwise, though, cool story, cool portrayal, almost caricature-like with some of the characters, but I like it. I'll give it an A. Let me catch up on the chat a little bit here. The King's Choice, I don't think is in here. That'd be World War II. I have not seen that whole movie yet. I've only seen the scene with the Blucher. All right. Hello from Greece. Very cool. Last King of Scotland. I haven't seen that one. That's Forrest Whitaker, isn't it? Yeah, The King, Outlaw King, and The Last Kingdom, all worth watching. I enjoyed all of them. Downfall and Darkest Hour are on there. You can go back and watch later and see it. Okay. We talked about Hitler, Rise of Evil. I'm going to give it a B. I've already talked about it, so I'm not going to go back and talk about it again. What else do we got here? Oh, let's talk about Longest Day. That'll be an A for me. I'm going to keep referring to what JD said earlier in the chat, where he talked about celebrity stuffing. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it's overdone. I feel like Longest Day had a little of both. John Wayne as the battalion commander with the 101st didn't work in that movie. That was trying too hard, I think. Others worked really well. But all in all, from start to finish, it's one of the best records we're going to get, portrayals that we're going to get of all aspects of the opening parts of the invasion of Normandy. So I like that. It is a top-heavy list, but I think the person who made it a top-heavy list. A lot of the stuff that's historical but bad isn't on here, or else I would have more things at the bottom. So I did do the King's Speech. That was one of the first ones I did. I don't think Come and See is on here, but that would be S tier for me. Come and See, if you are a World War II aficionado, is a must-see. I'm not sure you'll want to watch it more than once, but I think it is a must-see. I've never seen Lawrence of Arabia. I've never seen The Last Emperor. Does Ross Perot win if he doesn't drop out in 92? Maybe. Maybe. It's possible. But he shot any chance he had of doing it when he dropped out. Roaring Currents is about Admiral Yi. That one I've got to check out. Ozai, 100% agree. Come and See is a hard watch. It's like a lot of people have told me, it's like visiting Auschwitz. Like, you don't come away from a place like that feeling good, right? You know, you don't come out of there thinking, man, what an exciting visit that was. But still necessary and still good to do. Come and See will not leave you feeling good at the end of that movie. Still important to watch, I think. Boy in the Striped Pajamas is another one like that. That is a gut punch of all gut punches, which is exactly what that movie's trying to do and does beautifully, I think. Schindler's List, another excellent example of that. Must see once, not sure I'd ever see again. We'll give it an A. Or an S. All right. Let's do one more movie. and I'm going to wrap this up for today just because I'm losing my voice and I got to make dinner for my family. Okay. What's it going to be? Goodfellas, The Founder. Ricky Bryans, thank you. Appreciate that. Birth of a Nation. All right, we'll do 2 more. Let's do Birth of a Nation first. All right, here we go. I'm going to be super superficial on this one. F. It's a racist Klan movie that was screened in the White House by Woodrow Wilson. Yes, it was innovative in terms of Hollywood, but you know what? Some of the stuff Joseph Mengele did actually helped medical science. That doesn't mean it was appropriate, that it should have been done. Same thing with Birth of a Nation. It may have advanced Hollywood and had some innovations, but still awful. So there's that. All right, and then we'll do Goodfellas, and that'll be the last one that I'll do here. So where's Goodfellas? Here we go. Sadly, 2 of the main actors in that movie have passed in the last couple of months. For me, I'll be honest. I never got into Goodfellas the way I got into The Godfather. The Godfather, to me, while obviously Goodfellas is based on a true story, whereas Godfather is completely fictional. The Godfather, to me, is like anytime I'm flipping through the channels and it's on, I watch it no matter where it is. Godfather 1 or 2. But Ray Liotta and the guy who played Paulie just both died. But somebody said 3. Who's the third one that just died? I can only think of those 2. I mean, there's some good things. I mean, Joe Pesci's a little over the top for me in that one. I guess I wasn't a huge fan of the like the breaking of the third wall or of the fourth wall at the end with Ray Liotta on that one. Yeah, Paul Sorvino is the other one I'm thinking of, whose daughter Mira Sorvino played Fanny Chamberlain in Gods and Generals. Who's Paul Sorvino's character in Goodfellas that I'm thinking of? No, I'm not thinking of. Oh yeah, somebody's probably thinking of James Caan, who just died. He was in Godfather, not Goodfellas. Yeah, help me think. What's Tony Cicero? Sirico. So Paulie was who he played. Okay. Tony Sirico. So who's that? Tony Sirico. Oh, yeah. That's the guy I was actually thinking of who just died. Was Paul Sorvino in Goodfellas? Yeah. They both were. Okay. So there were 3. I stand corrected. Awesome. Not awesome that they died, but awesome that you guys corrected me. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up right there. So there's the list. You can go back and watch this later on if you didn't see. He played Paulie in Sopranos. Okay. You can go back and watch this from start to finish. It'll be up shortly, just as soon as YouTube processes it. But more streams will be coming your way. We're going to stream at least once a week. I'll probably stream a couple of times from the Antietam battlefield. Maybe we'll get JD to jump in on a stream with me while we're there together. We'll see. But thanks for watching, guys. Thanks to everybody who donated, and I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend.